Hi, I'm Pat Nepley. I'm an artist and an art teacher, and I understand firsthand all the challenges that homeschool parents face as they try to put together a well-rounded curriculum that includes an education in the arts. I mean, you want something that you don't have to be an expert at to teach. Doesn't require a lot of expensive art supplies, will develop skills, emphasize a Christian worldview, include art history appreciation, doesn't break the bank, oh, and you don't even have to leave home. Where are you going to find that? Well, then I think you'll love art class. It's a school year's worth of lessons, each about 15 to 20 minutes long, that teach kids of all ages how to draw. 36 step-by-step progressive skill-building lessons that make drawing fun to learn while injecting a little art history into the mix. And all of this plus a biblical integration in every lesson. And the best part? It's so affordable, and it only requires basic home and classroom materials. In fact, most of the lessons really require only a pencil, an eraser, and a piece of copy paper. No workbooks ever. So go to www.seethelightshine.com and enjoy 3 sample lessons free of charge. Review all the titles and descriptions of each of the 36 lessons, and I think you'll find it's just what you've been looking for at a price that can't be beat. I hope you'll enjoy checking out art class. Let me explain to you what a contour drawing is. A contour is an edge or an outline. If I'm looking at this apple, I'm not looking at the shade of green it is or how dark or light the whole apple is. I'm simply looking at the contour or the edge. That Picasso drawing was a contour drawing of the man in the chair, just lines. So if I'm going to draw this apple, I'm going to focus on the contours. Fill a page with circles and then say, what can I make from this circle? So for example, my first one could be a beach ball. Go ahead, you do that with your circle. It's just a series of curved lines that meet at the edges of the circle. This one could be, what fruit is perfectly round like this? How about an orange? The way that I show it's an orange, since it doesn't have a stem usually, is to put little dimples to show the skin. Okay, our third circle could be, how about a piece of hard candy? This is what I mean. You can just fill your page with shapes and figure out how you can turn that shape into a subject matter. Now, when we're drawing, it's really important to draw what we see and not what we know. So let me give you an example. Take a look at this table. This table has 4 legs. We know that. That's what holds it up. But sometimes, depending on where you're sitting, when you're looking at an object, you might not see all 4 legs of the table, so you shouldn't draw them. You know they're there, but it's not what you see. Okay, let's look at something else. See this mug? Everyone knows a mug has to have a handle. That's how you pick it up. But supposing the mug is turned, can't see the handle anymore. Now you know it's there, it's still a mug, but if you don't see it, you can't draw it. Here's a drawing of a scarlet macaw. I named her Tango. So Tango is on this branch, and if you were going to try to draw Tango, you would really start with the basic shapes. So how about we do this process in reverse? She's already drawn. So let's, using this tracing paper, find the basic shapes that make up Tango. I'm going to use my charcoal. And if I look carefully, I can see that Tango's head is really starts off with a circle. I see her body is a big oval. Look at her beak. If I were to break it down, it would be a triangle.
Okay, one more thing before we start to add some color. I'm going to add a few little triangles. When we did the word rejoice at Christmas time, we added some triangles to the end of some of our letters, and they had nice straight sides. For this particular lesson, we're going to add triangles, but we're going to curve the sides a little bit. For example, up here at the top of my G, I'm going to create this little curved line with a bottom to create my triangle. Over here on my R, same thing. I'm going to come down, make a curved line, add a bottom. I now have a little curved triangle. And down here at the bottom of my Y, on my descender, I'm going to make a curved line with a top, and I now have a triangle. My letters are starting to look fabulous, don't you think? And I bet yours look great at home too.
In 19th century England, artists and draftsmen, those who would draw drawings for, say, architecture or to build buildings, they needed to get very fine lines. Now, you can get a fine line by holding your pencil lightly and drawing, but the artists of that time needed to make very fine lines, and they determined that you can do that if the lead is very hard. But what about artists who wanted to be free and to do great drawings that would show up very quickly? They could use charcoal, which gave a very dark line, but it would smudge really easily. So they needed pencil graphite that was soft, that could give them a nice dark line and the ability to shade. So there's all different types of softness and hardness in the graphite point, and that's determined by a combination of letters and numbers. The H stands for hard, the B stands for black, and the number 2 pencil that you're so used to using in school is actually an HB, or medium hard soft. Now it's important when we talk about the value in a drawing that we understand that black is the darkest possible value, white is the lightest possible value. And when you put those two together, that's called contrast. Total opposites, black and white. So in a drawing, you can have high contrast, which is black directly against white, or you can have low contrast, which means just lots of shades of gray. On this side of the wheel, yellow, orange, and red, does it remind you of anything? How about fire? Maybe molten lava, sunshine, a desert. Those are all warm things, and these 3 colors are called your warm colors. Yellow, orange, and red, and any combination of those 3 colors is considered a warm color. Because the first thing we're going to talk about is complementary colors. That means the color opposite. Every primary color has a secondary color that's across from it on the color wheel. So the complementary color to yellow is violet. The complementary color to orange is the primary blue. And the complementary color to red is the secondary color green. So you'll notice each primary has a secondary that is its opposite.
Now, what I'm going to do, a lot of times when people do this, they'll just do 3 crosses that look just like this one. But to make it a little bit more interesting, I'm going to put this one cross down here. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than I made Jesus's cross, because they weren't right next to each other. They were close enough that Jesus was able to talk to the men on the other crosses, because we know that one of the men came to faith and believed in Jesus right from the cross. I'm going to draw that, and I'm going to make my line a little bit tilted. I'm going to tilt it down at kind of an angle, okay? And when I do that, it just gives it a little bit more interest, Okay, it makes it look a little nicer and sort of gives you a different feel. Now I'm going to come over here on this side and I'll do the third cross. And again, I'm going to try to make it about the same height as the one on the other side. Just going to draw some lines here.
So when you're working with color pencils, it's always best to use lighter colors first and then go back in with dark. Now why is that? Well, just like when we learned about the importance of keeping your lines light when you draw, it's hard to erase dark lines. And color pencil can be erased, but if you press too hard or use really dark colors, it's a little trickier. So always use your lighter colors first, and then you can add in light layers so it's not too dark until you just build up slowly what you want. And here's the tip for pastels. We always work from dark to light. It's the opposite of when you work with colored pencil. Color pencil, you work from light to dark because you want to be able to erase. But when you work with pastels, because they're so dusty, if you do light first and then dark, the dark dust will get on your light colors and make them muddy. And we don't want that. Here I have 3 sailboats. Now this first sailboat, right away you can tell that this sail is simply too small. It wouldn't get very far with a sail like that on this boat. But if we go to this sailboat, well, you could say the proportions are still off. The sail is either too large or the hull, the bottom of the boat, is too small. But this sailboat down here, this has the correct proportions. The sail and the hull look about right for what a sailboat should be. Now this is where proportions sometimes relies on what feels or looks right to the artist or to the viewer. Sometimes it's not an exact measurement. Some people might think that this sailboat is just fine, but my guess is a strong wind would knock it right over. So the proportions of this third sailboat are correct. That's the whole idea, to find the right tool for the texture that you want. For example, I might pick a totally different tool to try and get the texture of this shell exactly right than I would for, say, something as delicate as if I was trying to draw this piece of lace. I wouldn't use a clunky crayon for something as fine as lace, but I might use a very fine-tipped black pen. Okay, so we've been talking about the art elements through all of these club meetings. Do you remember what they are? Line, shape, space, value, color, texture. Well, now we're going to learn about our last art element, form. And I want you to really understand what form is. Now, form is very closely related to another art element, shape. You remember shape. Circle, square, triangle, rectangle, those are shapes. But when we say shape, we're talking about something that's flat. But when we're talking about form, we're talking about something that has 3 dimensions: length, width, and depth. You need to use all the rules of aerial perspective to show the furthest horizon. Remember those rules. The first, objects that are closer appear larger. Objects that are further away appear smaller. Our second rule, use bolder, darker lines in the foreground where things are closer, but your lines get finer and lighter as they're further away. And the third rule of aerial perspective is that when things are closer to you, you can see a lot of detail. But as things get further away, there's less detail and things get a little fuzzy. So you see, you can achieve balance in a drawing without doing anything related to symmetry just by where you place objects so that it has even weight. So if I were to draw a line down the center of this drawing, I probably have as many elements on this side as I have on this side. So it evens out, and that's informal balance. But I'm going to save my red because there's a big red spot on Jupiter. That's what it's known for. So I'm going to kind of blend in these stripes. We don't know why Jupiter's striped. And since Jupiter has an oval shape that's red, a big spot on Jupiter, I'll make that kind of towards the bottom of my circle. So you do that too. But again, we have to go back to our rule that since it's whatever's facing the sun is in light, whatever's away from it is in shadow, I take my black pastel and I'm going to go over it with black, and then I'm going to blend since that side of the planet is away from the sun.
You have lots of choices here. I think I'm going to start with my light blue. This is called Absolute Zero. We've got some great names here. And I'm going to come over to my cloud. And I'm going to shade the edges. And I'm even going to add some more little lumps and bumps here just to kind of reflect the puffiness of a cloud. And I'm not filling in the whole thing because I want to also see some of the white of a fluffy cloud. I think I will add one more. Boy, I would like lots of yellow on this. I'm going to add one more. Let's try Sizzling Sunset. Even though it's morning, I think it's okay to use a little Sizzling Sunset.
Take a look at this poster of the imaginary superhero Aquaman. Now you'll notice that his hands are quite large. He's leaping out of the water at you. Look at the size of his hands compared to his feet. Notice how they're almost double the size of his feet, which of course is not reality, but the artist drew him in that foreshortened, exaggerated perspective because it's a man of action. Now I'm ready to move on to my twig. So I'm going to pick up a couple shades of brown. And remembering some of our principles of color blending, I'm going to do light layers. I'm going to go right over those ink lines because those will pop right through. But since twig is covered in bark, it doesn't have to be real solid like paint. I can let some of the white peek through. And I can change my pressure so that I have different kinds of marks. But now I'm going to take my other brown and I'm going to go back in and kind of make some long lines so it looks more like bark, kind of over my brown that I already did there. And on the side where I have shadow, I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Now friends, I know it's really tempting because you know that nostrils are openings that you're going to want to draw two black holes, but that's not really how you draw a nose, okay? Because you don't see up someone's nose, you're looking at them from the front. So when you go to draw a nose, you're simply starting above the line, start near the parentheses, and we're making a single line that starts above. As you get to the center, dips below, and then curves back up towards the parentheses. So once we have our features here, basic features, remember pizza slice, not football, and that the nose is a slanted letter L, never with a full point, but everyone's nose is a little different. You want to look at the front. And we never draw full lips. We really focus on the line. That is where the two lips meet. Okay? So that's the basics of profile. So what if I were to use this as a guide and all I wanted to do is the basic structure? And she has a dress on, so I can't even see everything. But let's just do it this way. Her head is down, facing down. Because her upper torso is bent towards me, I'm not going to see her neck, and her torso will look shorter because she's bent over. This would be her shoulder line. Her arms are up, so it's the upper arm and lower arm, and her hand is kind of tucked under. And I see her, this is her shoulder, and then there's her upper arm. The elbow connects the lower arm, and her hand's kind of tucked under. Her hips are back, and I see this one leg is bent, upper, lower, and foot. And this is more straight, upper, lower, and foot.
With watercolors, the more water you add, the lighter the color is. The less water, the darker the color is going to be. So I want a nice, boy, that's a pretty blue. It's going to be a nice darkening sky, because you know the Bible tells us that when Jesus died on the cross, it got very dark outside. So we're seeing that darkness here. I'm going to bring that blue right down here to the edge of the red, okay? Now I'm going to dry that out, or not dry it out, I'm going to wash my brush out. Now I'm going to dry it out. See, there was a little blue that came off. I want to make sure that's all out, because I want to touch down into this yellow a little bit, and if I've got blue in there, I've got a green sky, and I don't want that. I'm going to just take my brush and just very lightly bring it across, come back, wash out again. Okay, check the brush, it's clean, blot it out. You come up here into the red and the blue. A little bit of that. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to actually pick my paper up, and I'm going to twist it around a little bit and let those colors just kind of bleed naturally into each other.
And not everybody will draw a human figure the same way. In fact, here's a painting by an artist from Mexico named Diego Rivera. And this painting is called Semiadores. Here are some men working in the fields, and you'll notice even though they have all the same body parts as our figure that we drew, Diego Rivera opted to draw it in a very fluid, exaggerated, curved style. In fact, you can't even see the feet in the fields. It's still figures. You still know that they're men of action. They're just drawn in a unique style. So everyone will draw figures a little differently.